Hi, everyone. Good morning. This is Preeti, co-founder Agrazon. So Agrazon is founded in India, and the core of the Agrazon is basically we're building harvest intelligence and supply analytics-driven supply chain. So the problem that we are solving is the massive post-harvest damages which India faces. So in fact, to quote the stats, India produces approximately 43 million metric ton potatoes and ends up wasting about 13 million metric tons, which is quoted to be a quantum which can feed the entire Europe. So this is the study which was published by a very prominent Agtech funds in India, Ankur Capital. And the solution that we are offering to basically, contain the post-harvest damages is by building a commodity harvest intelligence and supply analytics driven supply chain, which is basically a re-engineering the, the the conventional supply chain architecture, and by bringing in a lot of technologies. And in technologies primarily, it uses a component or a stack of AI, ML, and blockchain to have a traceability component built in, so that we can, we know that what is being grown where and how exactly the movement of the produce is happening from the farm to the market. So the model, the architecture of on-ground Agrazon supply chain architecture is as shown in the slide there, and we have a partially managed farms, and from there the aggregation of the produce happens at a collection or a distribution center. Now the collection center or a distribution center sits at the cluster, the congregation of clusters. Cluster is a collection of villages. So for about 45 to 50 villages, we have a cluster, wherein the aggregation happens. And from the cluster, so from the collection center or a distribution center, the harvest produce or the commodities are moved to either to the end customer or to the metro cash and carry unit, which sits in the urban area. And how exactly the technology is helping us contain the damages and control the supply chain performance. So we are completely analytics driven company. On the backside, we have a supply analytics wherein we are basically collecting a lot of data and analyzing a lot of data, that how exactly the commodity distribution is looks like across the country, which commodity is being grown where, and then what is the quantum that's going to come out from various geographical points when we consider the entire country. And on a demand side, we have a demand, predictive demand analytics. When we feed these, data sets into the system, we basically can see how exactly the inventory turnover and the perfect order index, etc., is performing. And then we have high turnaround rate, and cash cycles are really, really, kind of very competitive, and in terms of comparing to the competition. So this is a system view basically. Ours is a very a regression model. So what we do is basically the data streams for us, for the system to basically understand or to drive or to derive the quantum of the commodity is field sampling and the satellite data. So that's how, perhaps, if the time allows, I'll walk you through the dashboard, the supply dashboard of a commodity, and impact that we've been able to create on ground. So, we're working firsthand with the farmers to basically, understand their pain points in terms of moving the produce to the market. So they have a lot of, problems with the in-transit damages that happen. So that's why we have a strict source at farm policy, which cuts their damages by as much as 5 to 7%, and which basically ultimately leads to a better income. And yield estimate tool of ours helps them have a solid storage plan in place, so that they can contain the damages cumulatively. And there is a complete transparency in the process and payments, etc. So the achievements. So we've, over the period of 3.5 years, we've observed about 500,000 acres, the cluster that we're working in. And out of that total acres that we are observing, we've harvest mapped already 5 to 7% of that. And then constantly we've been working with the active farmer base of about 10,000, and high value growers. When I say high value growers, these are orchard owners and greenhouse polyhouse owners. So the cluster that we're working in, it basically does a business of about 100 CR annually, and we've already tapped, quite a quantum of that. And in terms of revenues, we in the last fiscal we clocked approximately 150,000 USD. We were marginally profitable last year, but this year, the burn has been high. So we have, this fiscal, we've achieved 190,000 USD as revenues, and that's how the projections look like. So we aim to achieve a break even maybe in about 2.5 years, and over the period of next 5 years, we are projecting, considering the demand, the solid demand pipeline that we already have. So about 65 million USD. And roadmap, that's how we grew since inception. So we founded way back in 2017 September, and we founded with the basic, with the mindset of collaborating very significantly with the farmer by providing them various agri input and agri advisory services. So that's when we went into the farm management space actually, and then it was registrations and certificates 2019, and we actually kickstarted the collecting a lot of ground data. So it's the sampling, it had happened quite significantly. And 2020 we basically launched the pivot of a fresh food supply chain. So during the corona, when the Indian supply chain was completely at its knees, we all don't know how exactly the system was broken overnight. And 2021, we've completely full scale pivoted toward fresh food supply chain. And yeah, recently we've done a lot of changes in terms of team to ramp up the supply chain, expertise in terms of on ground infrastructure and the tech and the solutioning overall, so that we could tap the international market also. So that's how we are positioned in comparison to the competition. So competition primarily is demand driven competition we are facing. So whoever is into the supply chain space in India, they are into more demand driven. Their procurement is around demand. So ours is maybe a supply led solution. So the motive is to cut down the damages in the supply chain. So that's why we are more of a supply driven company. And team wise, so Agrazon was founded by Saurabh and I, and gradually as we grew, we added team members. So as we speak today, we have a very stellar team with us while we are ramping up the tech and the solution. So Sandeep, he's my former IBM colleague. So I was working with IBM Hong Kong, prior to starting the Agrazon. And he is, ASEAN head who's handling the entire tech stack. So that's when we were ramping up the ops and in the stack. So he's acting as advisory to the board and strategic advisor. We accelerated with the Venture Garage, which is a prominent accelerator in India. IP and innovation, since we are the first, supply chain company which is a supply analytics driven and harvest intelligence driven. So we're working with Vivek Dahiya from Bodhic Ventures for to secure IP and patent for the technology, and data scientist Darshan is a guy. And this is what seed round. This is what we're looking to raise at a valuation of about 1.5 million USD. We are looking to raise about 1,000. 150,000 USDs. Yeah. This is it from me, folks. Thanks.